watching Canadian Muslim news on Muslim Network TV. From Toronto, Ontario, I'm Catherine Bullock. Assalamu alaikum and greetings of peace. Up next, a conversation with Tazeen Hasan from Justice for All Canada. They are claiming that a movie being shown at Cineplex right now called The Kashmir Files is a propaganda movie that will lead to killings in India. But first, some news headlines. Lack of access to food, basic necessities plague private shelters in St. John's. Expert recommends employers remain inclusive, flexible during Ramadan. St. John's Mosque holds first community iftar since pandemic end. And Shehbaz Sharif elected Pakistan's new Prime Minister. And now the details. Concerns rise among clients and tenants in multiple Newfoundland and Labrador homeless shelters, following reports of inadequate access to food, appliances, and basic necessities. Sour hot dogs, green egg sandwiches, and urine on the floor are common scenes at the centre, according to documents obtained by local media sources. There are also several reports about tenants fearing for their physical safety. In response to the complaints, Social Development Minister John Abbott says that there needs to be more routine inspections and surveillance over these shelters. The Diversity, Equity and Inclusion Coordinator at the Winnipeg Chamber of Commerce, Mahrouk Ali Aziz, is calling on non-Muslim employers and employees to be mindful of Ramadan. Aziz says employers can show leadership by educating staff about the meaning of Ramadan. She notes that it's important for staff to be mindful of prayer timings and double-checking within Muslim employees when scheduling meetings. Aziz recommends having authentic conversations with your Muslim co-workers to learn more about Ramadan and the required religious practices. She points out that recognizing the month through a simple greeting can make a great difference to Muslim staff. St. Thomas Islamic Centre is open to community iftars for the first time since opening last year in Ontario, in the midst of the pandemic. Islamic Relief Canada partnered with the mosque to turn Saturday's iftar into a fundraiser for orphan sponsorship abroad. Media representative and MC for the Saturday event, Zishan Sayed, says that about 100 attendees were present. He says that the blessing of Ramadan is coming together and doing things as a community, something that was limited last year due to the pandemic. Pakistan's parliament has elected former opposition leader Shehbaz Sharif as the country's new prime minister. Shehbaz, the younger brother of three-time former Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif, and a joint candidate of the combined opposition, secured 174 votes in a 342-member lower legislative chamber, the National Assembly. His election follows a successful no-confidence vote against former Prime Minister Imran Khan on Sunday. Khan accuses the US of toppling his government for his independent foreign policy. The new Prime Minister will serve for the remaining 1.5 years tenure, while the possibility of early elections is more likely. He is expected to announce his cabinet in a day or two. And that's it for the news. Cineplex is showing an anti-Muslim movie. To talk to us today about it, we have the team lead from the Free Kashmir from Justice for All Canada. Welcome to the show. Assalamu alaikum, Tazeen Hasan.
Walaikum assalam, Kathy. Thank you for inviting me.
It's our pleasure. You're one of our regular guests, and we look forward to hearing what you're up to. How's Ramadan coming along? Ramadan Kareem.
Mabruk.
Now, tell us about this movie. Cineplex shows movies from Hollywood that are anti-Muslim all the time. What makes this particular movie so important that you would put out a press release on it?
This is Sister Kathy. As you asked, what is important about this movie? This is a genocidal call, actually. We view it as a genocidal call through media, through the power of media, through the power of Bollywood. That's why it's very important to talk about this movie and reveal the facts, actual facts behind the storyline.
Okay, so I forgot to say the name. It's called The Kashmir Files.
And
that's a very scary claim. Can you unpack it for us?
Yeah, of course, I can unpack. You know that there is Genocide Watch has actually issued a genocide warning in Kashmir, and about 600,000 to 900,000 Indian soldiers are there. There are extrajudicial killings, rapes, arbitrary arrests. Whole Kashmiri leadership is under arrest since about 30 years, especially after 2019 when India revoked Article 370. So basically, there are genocidal calls, and then there are genocidal calls in India too. We know that since December, there are genocidal calls in mass congregations of Hindutva followers. So Hindutva leaders are calling for Muslim massacre in India, and they are villainizing Muslims and Kashmiris since long.
So
And
how
now,
does that relate to this movie?
yeah, how did it relate to this movie? You are right. Basically, this movie is spreading hate against the Muslims. It is actually putting fuel to the fire. This movie, Hindutva followers are already hating Muslims. There have been hundreds of lynchings across India since the BJP assumed power, and now they are spreading hate using the power of Bollywood. Bollywood is one of the most powerful entities in the world, not in India. And this movie is being screened in Canadian cinema, in Western cinema, in India. So Islamophobia that is already on rise in across the world, it's actually flaming in Islamophobia. Let me tell you the storyline, if you allow me, Kathy. Actually, this movie claims to reveal the exodus of Kashmiri Pandits from Kashmir in early 1990s, in late 80s and early 1990s. And it is claiming that there was a genocide of Kashmiri Pandits in Kashmir.
Okay, I just need to stop
Hindu Pandits, actually. Pandits is a,
for 1 minute. The audience in Canada has probably zero understanding of Kashmiri history, and that would include me. What's a Kashmiri Pandit? I don't know.
Kashmiri Pandits is actually the highest caste of Brahmins, Kashmiri Hindu. You know that there is a caste system in Hinduism. So they belong to the highest level of echelon, Kashmiri Pandits. And they were in minority in Kashmir, but they were ruling Kashmir before partition of Indo-Pak. So in 1987, actually, there was a peaceful protest of Kashmiri Muslims who were demanding the right of self-determination, who were protesting against the rigging in the election by Indian government. And the Indian army opened fire on peaceful Kashmiris. About 100 to 150 Muslim Kashmiris were killed. And this event started an insurgency inside Kashmir. Before 1987, the Kashmiri Muslims were fighting for their right of self-determination through peaceful means, through protests, through democratic means, through negotiations. But after 1987, when the Indian army killed about 150 Kashmiris, opening fire on the peaceful protesters, this event started an insurgency in Kashmir. India claims that this insurgency was supported by Pakistan. According to Geneva Convention, according to international law, if the people are struggling for their self-determination, they can take help from neighboring countries. They can take arms for their right of self-determination. In South Asia, Nelson Mandela actually took arms to get against the apartheid regime. And there is an apartheid regime. There is no time in this program to talk about the apartheid regime that is existing in Kashmir. But
let me stop you there, Sister Tazeen. Let's please bring it back to the movie. What does this have to do with the?
So basically, this movie claims that there was a genocide of Kashmiri Pandits. But let me tell you, there was an evacuation of Kashmiri Pandits from Kashmir. There was some target killings in 1989, 1990 of Kashmiri Pandits. But they were isolated cases, not a mass massacre of Pandits. The fact is that, according to Pandits' own association, Pandits Association says that there were about 399 killings from 1999 to 2008. 399 killings in 9 years, and the total killings of Pandits in Kashmir were 699. According to Pandits' own association. I can provide you the link of the report that is specifying that. But the Indian government claims, the film is claiming that was a genocide. That was an orchestrated, systematic effort to actually wipe out the Kashmiri Pandits. That is wrong, actually. Basically, the insurgency started in 1987, as I told you. About 100,000 Kashmiri Muslims were killed by Indian army. Civilians were killed. There were rapes. There were extrajudicial killings. There were arbitrary arrests. Civilians were used as a human shield by Indian army, and there was a reaction against this. And there were some of the militant groups who targeted Kashmiri Pandits in retaliation of the Indian army's actions.
Okay, so let's just pause the history there. I mean, of course, all killing is bad, whether Muslims are doing it or the Indian army is doing it. So let's just try to be clear about that. But let's bring it back to the Cineplex. We don't have a lot of time.
Just so basically, this movie is spreading hate. This is villainizing Muslims. This is villainizing every Muslim, not just the militants who killed Pandits, but every Muslim. And let me tell you, this was not a sectarian conflict. The militants also killed Kashmiri Muslims. This is on record that they killed about 15,000 Kashmiri Muslims who were cooperating with Indian government. They killed Kashmiri Pandits, about 400 Kashmiri Pandits during that period. And most of the killings of Kashmiri Pandits actually happened after 1991. We have solid reports. Indian government has solid reports of that. And then during this period, Kashmiri Muslims were killed. Kashmiri Muslims were killed by militants, and Kashmiri Muslims were killed by Indian army. And Kashmiri Pandits were also killed by militants, but they were just 400 to 600 during the period of 25 years to 26 years. We can't call it a genocide.
I'm sorry to keep interrupting you. I just want to keep us focused on the Cineplex issue. We're almost out of time. You've put out a press release claiming that this movie will trigger mass violence against Muslims. What do you want Cineplex to do? Have you approached them?
Actually, highlighting this story, by highlighting this story of Kashmiri Pandits, this isolated story of Kashmiri Pandits, actually, there were dozens of Muslim massacres in other parts of India, but the movie is just focusing one incident of target killings of Kashmiri Pandits, and they are villainizing Kashmiri Muslims and all Muslims, actually, in India.
So what do you want Cineplex to do about it? Have you approached Cineplex?
Cineplex should ban this movie because it is hate speech. It is not freedom of expression anymore. Freedom of expression is a very important Western value, and we respect that value. We embrace that value. Actually, Islam also suggests freedom of expression. It is something that is fundamental. It's part of the fundamental charter of Muslims. Freedom of expression. But there is no freedom that is obsolete, Kathy. Right. There are constraints on every. If your freedom of speech is trying to create hate against a community, against a religious group in Canada, in Australia, in India, and it is inciting violence. It is inciting violence in India. Then this and it is actually a reason behind the rise of Islamophobia. Then we will have to stop it. There is a limit to the freedom of expression. So Cineplex should ban this movie. Should stop screening this movie.
And we're out of time, unfortunately, but thank you for coming on to share with us the situation behind the movie. And we ask everybody not to attend and not to view it. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Canadian Muslim News. Please share, like, and subscribe. Stay safe and God bless.